Welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Winston, and I want to talk to you about our community. I want you to become a member of our community. It's important for the country. It's important for our local community. It's important for you. And that's the essence of this. How do you make your life better? How do you make things easier in the future? We stress the idea of charity and charity to generate income. That's basically the theme. Use charity to create income that you can use for the future. The Social Security system has its issues. We know that. And so we've created Social Charity as an adjunct. It's something that you can use right now to help you increase your retirement funding. By creating income that you'll have later on that can supplement your Social Security. And then eventually maybe Social Charity will replace Social Security. It depends on how everybody gets a chance to understand what we're doing. It's like, it's not real complicated, but it is complex. And so in the complexity of it, you need some guidance. And the guidance that we're providing is through like a menu at a restaurant, courses that we have created to help you understand what needs to be done in order to maximize your own well-being, how to maximize your own future income. Everything is about income. Later on in the show, we're going to have a question and answer session from my friend Wanda, talking to me about and asking me about the difference between wealth and income and why they're not the same. And it's a very important concept to understand, because in developing wealth, a lot of people gather their resources and they buy things and they invest in land and they invest in properties and they invest in stocks, and all those things are the gathering section of a person's life, where you gather together what you're going to use for later. And so that gathering process sometimes gets elongated, where instead of reaching a point where you stop the gathering and you start converting into usable income, the gathering process continues and people don't know when to let go of what they have. Letting go, however, has some issues, because when you let go, there's a tax. And that's the bugaboo. That's what makes it difficult for people to let go of assets that they've accumulated, because they look at the tax, and the tax is kind of like a disincentive. So what the government did in their infinite wisdom in 1969 was they created ways for you to get rid of that tax. You don't have to pay that tax. And you can create the income from the entire part of what you gathered, so that you don't lose any of it to tax. There's no need to pay more tax than you have to. And not knowing how to avoid tax and not knowing how to work around the tax system is expensive. So what we do in the courses, we help you get through this. We show you how to deal with certain types of appreciated assets, appreciated stock, appreciated commercial real estate. But also we talk about 5 financial hazards. We talk about the 5 tax levels. We're trying to get the point across that there's an education process. There's financial literacy that's necessary, especially now that we're entering into the economic world. And we've been in an economic world for a while, but this is the world where what you have to offer is important, and its value is what's going to make you have income. It's that simple. So part of what we're doing is we want to create an ambassador community. We want you to become part of that community. You can join the community for $49 a month. It's a way for us to keep what we do going, and it's a way for you to have an interest in what's going on through our podcast, through our Spotify podcasts, and to understand the course materials. So all of these things are part of that community atmosphere. We want you to become educated as a informed taxpayer, an informed income gatherer. And so that is what's going to help you do things better in the future. You're going to create social charity, and you're going to learn how to do that through the ambassador community, and then you can share that information with others. That's why it's a community. So you can find that at discovery664.com. Discovery664.com is the portal that you enter to get the opportunity to be part of the community. And then if you want to carry it further, beyond helping just yourself and your family and your own well-being, you can reach out to help other people and become a professional at it as an endowment engineer. An endowment engineer helps people maximize the way they get their income to avoid taxes, and to show you how to do that using the sections of the code that are complex. So you need engineering to get through that. And engineering is something that's very important, because when something is not engineered properly, it has a tendency to fall apart. And that's why I think we're in the state that we're in, somewhat of this kind of confusion, because things have not been engineered properly. When Congress passed these laws in 1969, it should have been engineered at that time to get the public to use these, and we wouldn't be in some of the fixes we're in today. They created these in 1969 to help solve the demographic problem that Social Security ran into and Medicare is running into. The Social Security system was created in 1934 when life expectancy was 58 years old, and it wasn't the same as it is today. Now you have people who are becoming centenarians. You have a much larger population, and you have something that wasn't engineered properly to begin with, because if it was done in an engineered or on an actuarial basis, it would have worked. That's the same thing that happened to major employers. It used to be, if you worked for General Motors in the 60s, if you worked for General Motors, it was like womb to tomb. They would pay for your birth. They would pay for your burial. They would give you a retirement income in the interim. And that retirement income, by the way, is very similar to what you create with Social Security. And that is, you create a lifetime income stream, but there's no corpus, and that's how those pensions used to work. They used to say, we'll give you a pension once you reach 20 years of service, and they used to pay it out of the corporate trusted till, whatever that was. But now you can do it yourself, and doing it yourself is better for your individualism, it's better for your success level, and it helps you do whatever you want. You can create as much as you want, as big as you want, whatever the endowment is that you want to create to live off of as income, and then when you pass, you can pass that on into the community, and the community can use that to solve community problems by endowing hospitals, by endowing daycare centers, adult care centers, that's schools. Everything can be done through charitable means instead of through governmental means. The governmental means is a tax on you. They're not producing anything. They're taking from you to do what they need to do. You can do that directly. This is the oracle for your financial well-being. You can find more information about what we're doing on the discovery664.com, and don't forget to listen to our radio broadcasts. They're on
radio station,
on our station, radio station, and we're going to be back right after this break with Wanda and questions. Don't go away.
Our protagonist, Jack, was a 65-year-old retiree who'd always been known for his offbeat sense of humor and love for numbers. He'd been searching for a way to support his community while securing his retirement income. One day, while browsing through the depths of the internet, Jack stumbled upon an article about Tax Code 664 and its potential benefits for charitable planning.
Hello, welcome to today's edition of Route 664, the road to you in kindness.
Curious and excited, Jack decided to delve further into this mysterious code. He spent hours poring over tax law books and articles until he became a self-proclaimed expert on the subject. He'd tell his friends, "Who needs a doku when you've got tax codes to crack?" Armed with his newfound knowledge, Jack approached his financial advisor, Martha, and shared his idea of utilizing Tax Code 664 to set up a charitable trust. He was convinced that this strategy would benefit not only his retirement, but also his beloved community, particularly the revitalization of the local park. With a twinkle in her eye, Martha acknowledged Jack's enthusiasm and praised his resourcefulness. Together, they devised a plan to establish a charitable trust that provided Jack with a stable retirement income and directed the remaining funds towards renovating the park. Word of Jack's innovative approach spread like wildfire, inspiring others in the community to explore the potential of Tax Code 664. Soon, more and more people began implementing charitable planning strategies to support various community projects, ranging from building a new animal shelter to establishing a local art center. As Jack took his daily strolls through the newly renovated park, he couldn't help but smile. His Tax Code 664 adventure had not only secured his retirement, but also transformed the community in more ways than he could have ever imagined. With a wink and a grin, Jack would often say, "Looks like the joke's on boring retirement plans." Who knew tax codes could be so much fun? Who? Remember, your financial journey can be both impactful and entertaining when you explore the potential of charitable planning with Tax Code 664. Visit endowamerica.com. With the right knowledge and guidance, anyone can turn their dreams into a reality. Leave a lasting legacy that benefits generations to come. endowamerica.com. Plan, prosper, pass on. The power of 664. Alrighty then.
Yes. So I did have a great opportunity to see my granddaughter over the holiday.
And the great-grands.
And my great-grands. They're in from Israel, from Jerusalem. And that's what you're going to see next week. We're going to do an interview with my granddaughter and want to have a chat with her and see what she thinks
As
about
we should
things.
all have those chats with our grands.
Yes, they're good things. So now we're joined by Wanda.
Yes, we're going to have another Ask Less session.
All right.
Got some questions for you
Yes,
that you can
ma'am.
break it all
Okay.
down. First of all, I didn't anticipate asking this, but I think that what exactly is an engineer? Because we're getting kind of loosey-goosey with that term. And usually that requires a degree, most people think. But an engineer is just someone that puts stuff together.
An engineer is the person that takes you from point A to where you want to go, point B. And that can be anything. Let's assume that they're extremes. The first extreme is I want to get from the Earth to the moon. Okay.
That requires a degree.
That requires a degree of knowledge that is engineering knowledge. In other words, you have to know how to get from here to there. What do you have to do in between? The engineer tells you all the things that you have to do, and then the engineer could say, well, the first thing is that you have to be able to get there in enough time in a fashion that works quickly and where you're not worried about dying.
Exploding.
Yeah. So that's the first step in the engineering process. Okay, now you work backwards. Well, you got to have something that's going to get you there. We got to build what's going to get you there, and we got to train people to run what's going to get you there, and all those steps. So that's engineering. Second type of engineering would be real simple. I want to go from Miami, Florida to Tallahassee, Florida by train.
Yeah.
Okay, so in order to get there by train, you got to engineer that. You got to figure out where you're going to go through the terrain. Where you're going to go through. There's water in the way. There's roads in the way. How are you going to do that? So that's an engineering problem. So our engineering problem is it's actually what I talk about in the Spotify this week, where we talk about the 3 B's: the budget, the budget.
Balance
your
sheet.
balance sheet and your ballparking. So that is the basis of our engineering. We're taking what you have and we're figuring out what you need, and then we need to know for how long. So that's the first set of the engineering problems. When you look at what you have, you need to decide whether or not you have what you need to support what you spend. So your budget is what you're spending. If you don't have enough to carry what you're spending, then you don't have enough income. If you don't have enough income, you got to create more income. What do you have to use to create that income? And that's the assets that you have on your balance sheet. But then we need to know, well, what's the life expectancy? How long do I need that for? And that's what you project out. That's the fallacy of the Social Security system is that engineering wasn't done properly. They did not account for the change in demographics to the extent that there are, and then they interfered with it by using money for other things. So it was never actuarially sound, and now we're seeing the results of that. So you can make things actuarially sound, but you need to have more attention paid to it, and unfortunately that's not what's done. It was inefficient. If the private sector did to pension plans what the federal government did to the Social Security system, they'd be in jail. That's how bad that is.
Well, the inefficiency is probably not counting on the technological advances that we've done in the last 30 years or so. I mean, I don't think anyone would have anticipated how fast we will have grown.
The technology actually should help.
Yeah.
But they're not using it properly. But it's not just the technology, but also it wasn't. They knew that demographics were not going to be the same. They had projected that long ago, because that's why they did the sections we're talking about in '69. That's why they changed that. They knew it was going to happen that way. People were living longer already, but they were not, and they knew the population was going to grow. And what they didn't count on was the expansion of, or the inflationary process of what a dollar was worth in 1934 compared to what it's worth today.
And they took it off that gold standard. It was not helpful either.
Good. Yes, I like that.
I know. All right. Yeah. So that brings me to my next question.
All right.
You're always talking about wealth and income, and you can't eat dirt.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know, what is the difference between the two? We'll start with, what is wealth?
Wealth is your balance sheet. When we say balance sheet, that's what it is. Your balance sheet says what your wealth is. It's your assets minus your liabilities makes your net worth. Your net worth is your wealth. So, and that can the ability to put together your proper net worth is important, because a lot of things that you may not think have value actually have value. For example, some businesses never give themselves credit for having goodwill, and goodwill is a very valuable thing to have. But it's not you don't see it. You're not saying, oh, I see that it's manufactured. It's a process. It's what you can apply to something. So you need to know how to value what you have, and then after you value what you have, you've determined what your wealth is. That does not equate to income, because, as we say, you can have wealth that doesn't produce any income. Income is what you have coming in. Yeah, what are you going to spend?
We'll get to income in a little bit. Good. But also, I came across a few things that had several types of wealth: financial wealth, there's physical wealth, there's human capital, there's social wealth. And there's a bunch of things that are accounted for in wealth, and I was wondering how that plays into your theory of how do you count that as wealth?
Well, what they're doing is they're subcategorizing what is considered part of your balance sheet. So your balance sheet is not necessarily just hard assets, but it also includes concepts. And so you can have, for example, a business, the valuation of a business where you have somebody at the head of the business, for example, that's a member of a prestigious family in the country, that makes a difference than somebody who is not a member of a prestigious family in the country. So that's kind of familial wealth or relationship wealth. But you can also have somebody who has a sports background, so now they have notoriety wealth. They have why does one actor get paid $2 million for a picture and another actor get paid $300,000 for a picture? That $2 million actor has that personal wealth, that what we would call public relations wealth. And so that is...
I would think that I think wealth, you can make people happier. I think ultimately everything we do is for happiness. Why do you do anything? It makes me happy.
Well, you can have psychological wealth.
So, but for me, I think that actors are paid, like Lucille Ball made me really happy, and I thought she should have been a wealthy woman, and that's the capital. It's the what you provide to humankind.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's your talent, it's your skill sets, it's all of those things, but they don't necessarily, Okay,
People that bring misery are not wealthy.
That's a very good point, because when we talk about the difference between wealth and income, being the greatest actor doesn't mean you're going to get income, because you can screw yourself up. You can have financial hazards. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They become enamored with the other thing that happens with people like stars and athletes who get a lot of money. They start living like they're going to have that amount of money for the rest of their lives, and so what they do is they burn through the principal and never have anything to produce income later on, and that's a problem. And so,
or they have bad parties.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, or they have a lot of kids, or at a wedlock, or whatever. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. So, wealth can be defined in a lot of different ways, but taken as a whole, that is your wealth. Now, how do you translate that wealth into income? That is the issue. How do you translate that wealth, whatever that wealth is, into income? If you're an actor and you have the skill set right now, what you're doing is you're making a lot of money, but you can't spend that money. You really need to be taking that money and putting it into something that will produce income for you later on. And I think a lot of them do use charitable devices to do that. They should, anyway.
And if a farmer has land, why isn't that farmer wealthy necessarily? Because they're providing, like you say, you can't eat dirt, but you can grow stuff out of dirt. They can have a drought.
You have a drought, and now you have no crops. I mean, that happens. That's where you move to a place that was a dust bowl. You know, like there's no, you can't grow things. So, yeah, you can own land. You can be a landowner. You can be whatever you are. If you're a fireman, a farmer, or a banker, it doesn't make any difference, huh?
I said you could be a monk on the top of a mountain and feel very wealthy, because
they have wealth. They have spiritual wealth. They have wealth of they don't. Their wealth is that they don't need income because somebody's taking care of them. But somebody, they're even then they still need. You can't, unless you're living in a cave, on land that's been deeded to you, or you own. Well, you can own the premises and have it owned for a long time. So you can have people gathering as monks in that place and not have any expenses, but you still have to have food. You can grow your own food. So you can live in that utopian kind of.
On an island.
Yeah, where you don't have anything to do but read and write.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
So there are different types of income as well. And we have the gross income, we have net income, and we have discretionary income. Talk about the income and the differences.
Yeah, so gross income is the total amount of income that you receive. The net income is what you have after you've paid necessary expenses against the gross income. So you start out with a business has, and that mostly is in a commercial sense, a business takes in gross income, takes in gross revenue. Income and revenue are basically the same thing. The gross revenue, gross income comes in, and then you take off the cost of the goods that it took to get that income, because that's not all profit. And then you take off the other expenses that it took to get that income, whether it's transportation or communication or whatever those expenses are. And then the bottom line is what the net income is, and that's the net income that a corporate entity reports, or if it's not a C corp, it's an S corp, it would be reported on your personal tax return. But that's how you get the net income. And what was the other? The other one was
discretionary.
Discretionary income. So. Again, income, all of these terms are income, but the general issue of income is spendable, okay? What is spendable by the person that is the recipient of all of this effort, okay? The business is making an effort to sell things and to do things to bring in revenue, and at the end of the day, it's not the corporation that's able to spend the money as a corporate entity, because it's a paper entity. Somebody's getting the money and they can spend that money. So that's income that they're going to spend. Now, they're going to spend it personally in two ways. They're going to spend it on what is necessary. They have to pay their mortgages, they have to pay their rent, they have to pay for a car, they have to pay for gasoline, pay for electric, whatever those things are. Those are all things that are necessary. And then there's discretionary income. It's where you want to take your income that is not necessary, but you want to use it for other things. And that's where you spend on entertainment, you're spending on gifts to others and things like that.
I think that takes me to the next question.
Yep.
Why do some high-income households have low wealth?
Because they're spending everything, that's a problem unless you have something that's, you need the goose that lays the golden eggs or whatever, and the geese die. The problem is you have an earning capacity, and you need to find a way to make that income without having to do something. If you have to do something to get the income, and you can't do what you need to get the income, that's when you fail. So a lot of people are earning a lot of money, and this is one of the issues that most professionals, the high earning professionals in the country, have this as their issue, basically, where they're making a lot of money, but they're also spending a lot of money. And I've told this story before, where I've asked I said to an attorney, where I asked him the question, what is your monthly budget? And he says $6,000 a month. I said, what do you earn? He said, I earn $350,000 a year. I said, okay, great. So that means you're saving about $270,000. Right? Well, after tax, maybe you're saving $150. No, I'm not saving anything. I said, why is that? I don't know. And then we went back and we figured it out, that the budget that he was living on, he wasn't including his trips and his vacations and whatever else, entertainment and so on.
I had a list of some of the reasons there. It has high consumption lifestyle, misplaced priorities, overdependence on earnings, low savings rates. There's a good one. House marketing vulnerability, debt accumulation, ooh, that hurts, and lack of diversification.
Yes.
Lack of diversification sounds like a...
So here's an engineering problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's coming to you and they say, I don't know why I'm not saving anything, like this guy, this professional that I was working with. And the reason he wasn't saving anything is because of all these issues. He had a high consumption lifestyle. His priorities weren't on saving. He was very dependent on his actual earnings. And when you go through life, you're going through changes. You get married, you buy a house, and all these things. And some of those things have other issues attached to them. The economy of the country has something to do with that. And that's why if interest rates go up, it's hard for people to maintain their mortgages. You have these issues now with people who are having huge assessments in their condominiums where they never would have thought about that. And that's a part of the housing market vulnerability. And then people actually during COVID, after COVID, people, because the inflation changed and people really started relying on credit and their credit cards, and a lot of people's credit cards are maxed out. And then when the credit cards are, they charge interest that's through the moon. And then lack of diversification. That has to do with I'm an architect, therefore I work in an architect office, therefore I do what an architect does, and that's the only thing that I think about investing in is architecture and being a professional architect. But that doesn't work all the time, because if you're no longer an architect, you can't be an architect, you're disabled or something like that, then you're relying strictly on your architectural profession.
Is that what they call the side hustle?
Side hustle, but I don't know about a side hustle so much as a side bet.
Investment.
Side investment, but actually it's more what we're dealing with when we're talking about savings. The reason why you do savings is so you have diversification. You're able to save to create new investment opportunities that diversify yourself from being just a straight line and only believing in one thing and only relying on your income. You want to diversify your income. Or sources of income. Okay. Yeah.
I think one more quick question. I just wanted to. You always talk about we're going into an economic world, and I just want to understand that a little bit, or if you could explain it a little bit more to those of us.
The progression was from tribal to religious to political to the economic world, and I think the next one is human kindness. In the tribal world,
that's the spiritual world I like.
Well, spiritual world is the spiritual world is already here. The question is, how much are we using it?
I think kindness would be a more spiritual when we get there. I think when we get to the kindness part, it'll be a more spiritual world.
No question about that.
So,
well, I think it's there. I think we just have some forces in here that are stopping it.
Yes, well, we'll talk about that in another episode. And we're almost out. We're just about out of time.
Thank you very much. You're going to give the commercials what we got to listen to and what we got to see.
Oh yeah, come visit us and listen to this show and others, and get all the information you can possibly need, and then some at route664.org, accompanied with some wonderful music. Also, every Thursday we have our jazz show, and that's pretty fun with the other less. We have more lessons than we know what to do with.
Yeah, less.
So that, and then of course the educational aspect of what we do is all at discovery664.com.
Right, and that's where you can join the community. So that's what we'd like you to do, become part of the Ambassador community. We'll be with you again next week. Take care.